Many kids will experiment with whining, and it's not the most pleasant thing to listen to, right? And when we react to the whining, we will see it continue because to them, I whined and mom either gave me what I was looking for, or I whined and I whined and I whined, and mom eventually got really mad and told me to stop whining.
Hey guys, it's your Tanita. This episode of Mom Talks with Krista. This is part 2 of my interview with Samantha Day, who is a family sleep and behavioral specialist. If you missed part 1, I highly recommend you go back and watch that one first, as there's tons of amazing tips in regards to behavior and children and some awesome techniques. So today we're going to talk all about using emotion words and calming strategies. And she has this amazing strategy when it comes to attention. So without further ado, check out this awesome episode. So another thing you talk about is emotion words. So what are those, and then how can they be used?
Emotion words are so important, and that is just a matter of teaching the words of what we feel. So things like happy, sad, mad, frustrated, angry, scared, frightened, all of these types of words are words that we can be using from the time our children are very young so that they're familiar with these. And in the beginning, when they are young, young toddlers and young children, we may have to label it and say, oh my goodness, it looks like you're really frustrated right now, and just really label that. Or we can model it ourselves, and we're trying to open a spaghetti can in the kitchen and we can't do it, and say, oh, I'm so frustrated, I can't get this. And allow them to see that all of these emotions are completely normal and completely okay. And we all feel that way. But what do we do to calm ourselves, and what does our body look like when we do feel this way? And that's what's really important, is we want to teach and model and use those words so they're used to them and they see what those words mean. But we also want to say, what can we do to calm ourselves when this happens? And it's really important that we talk about this for sure at all parts of the day, but it's also important that we address this when emotions are low. Because when our emotions are high and our kids are frustrated, or, my brother took my toy and I'm really, really mad, of course, that's a time where we can label the emotion and we can maybe model some of the calming strategies. But our logical brain and our emotional brains, they don't really work at the exact same time most of the time. So if our kids are at a real heightened level emotionally and they're really upset, logically understanding, okay, this is what happened, this is how I calm myself, it may not be the easiest thing to do in the world. So practicing that and talking about that when they're calm, that's what's going to help them the next time to be able to really kind of use those skills that they learned in the actual moment to calm themselves.
What are some other examples of some different calming strategies that it's appropriate to teach our children during those times?
Really depends on the age of the child. So we'll look at, see what are they fully cognitively understanding and what can they do physically, and that's when we'll decide. But things as simple as squeezing our hands really tight, and we can model that and just say, okay, oh, I'm so frustrated, let's squeeze our hands and let's count to 5. Or for an older kid, let's squeeze our hands and count to 15. You pick what would work for them academically in the moment as well, and cognitively. But it could be things like taking a deep breath and blowing out. Okay, that is really going to help calm their bodies. There's different things like clapping, which can just be a rhythmic way of calming themselves, just like a real soft clap that they can do. They can squeeze a sensory ball. They can squeeze a pillow. They can run back and forth in the room really, really, really fast as a way to just kind of get that anger and energy out in the moment as well. But appropriate ways like that can be helpful in calming them.
I love you talk about express emotion words, expressing how they feel, and that it's okay to feel those ways, because I think a lot of times it's oh, don't be angry, don't do this, and then kids either hold it in or then they get more angry because they're not able to express themselves. So I think that's so powerful what you were saying about that. So you also talk about giving attention to positive things and things we want to see more of. So what do you mean by that?
So back to the beginning where we talked about every behavior serves a purpose. A behavior that receives a response is going to continue. So that response could be positive or negative, but we're probably most likely going to see it continue. And a behavior that doesn't receive a response, or it receives a consistent response or consistent guidance every time, is one that we're normally going to see fade. So let's use whining as an example. Okay, many kids will experiment with whining, and it's not the most pleasant thing to listen to, right? And when we react to the whining, we will see it continue because to them, I whined and mom either gave me what I was looking for, or I whined and I whined and I whined, and mom eventually got really mad and told me to stop whining, right? These are just examples, but one way or another, whining typically receives a response, positive or negative, and so we see it continue and continue. But what if we stepped back for a second and we said, okay, whining is a behavior that we don't want to see anymore. We want to fade this, okay? And we decided that we were either going to not give it any attention or we were going to give it consistent attention. So I'll give you an example of both of those sides because every family is going to choose a different way that fits their parenting style. So the no attention would simply be that whining is something your ears can't hear. And this would be, you're standing in the kitchen and you're making dinner and you've got a little one at your leg saying, I'm hungry, I want food, right? And they're whining that they want to eat. And you simply don't hear it. They're safe. There's nothing wrong in that moment, but your ears don't work and don't hear whining. And the second that they stop whining and they call your name in an appropriate tone or they change the way they're asking, we give it a ton of attention. So in that moment we say, oh, were you asking me something? I can hear you now. Very good. Ask me again. Tell me what you need. We get down on their level. We look in their eyes. We give it so much attention to the behavior that we want to see more of instead of acknowledging the whining behavior. And so often we acknowledge it in a negative way. We say, oh, stop whining, or say it differently, or, you're whining, I can't answer you. And we just acknowledge the whining, but not acknowledging it. And then responding in a big way to the language we do want to hear shows them what type of behavior received the response that they were looking for. So that is a way of not responding at all. Another way, though, for parents who are like, well, I'm not going to ignore my little one, right? Maybe they're not comfortable with that personally in their parenting style. Another way is to acknowledge that it's happening with consistency. So this would be maybe coming up with a sentence that you say consistently every time that you hear that whining. And that could be something like, say it nicely and mommy will answer. And let's say they whine again, you can say it nicely and mommy will answer. This is just an example I made on the top of my head, right? But coming up with one sentence and responding consistently every time, and they're whining about any subject, doesn't get an exact response about the subject, but instead gets a consistent response until they change the way that they're talking. That's another way to guide this. So we're giving attention to what we want to see more of, and we're giving less attention or no attention to what we want to fade.
Awesome. Does this kind of response work also with like doing something they shouldn't be doing? So if they're like jumping on their bed or, something like that kind of behavior, would it work as well with that? Or is that a little bit different?
It can be the same, but safety is number one. So if it's whining, there's no concern that your little one's going to fall off the bed or get hurt or anything like that. So an ignoring situation, making the choice to ignore that is okay. But if we're jumping on the bed or we're, throwing a toy and it might hit somebody, then of course safety is absolutely first. And then ignoring isn't an option in that situation, but consistently responding is one of the best things we can do. So if you're noticing that your little one, let's say, is hitting a lot, that's a way where we can control their hands, pull their hands down, even turn them away from us where we're holding them and they're safe, but they're not able to physically hit us in that moment. And we're not making eye contact and giving attention to the actual behavior. We're making sure, controlling the hitting, making sure that everyone is safe. And then when we calm down, then we can talk about the hitting again when emotions are lower. But in that moment, let's say you've grabbed their hands to make sure nobody's hurt. Let's say you've turned them around in your arms and you're giving them a hug. Maybe their back is to you. Maybe you have a consistent statement in that situation as well, where you say, hands are for hugging, not for hitting, or something like that, where you come up with your sentence and you repeat it consistently. Maybe even model some of those calming strategies as you're holding them. You could go, right? And you're kind of modeling that in those big moments. And then when they calm down, we can talk about it some more. So every situation is going to be a little bit different, but taking a second, stepping back and deciding, how am I going to handle this situation, right? Especially if it's something that's repeated a lot and you're seeing them constantly jumping on the bed or constantly doing X, Y, or Z, you can come up with what your consistent guidance method is going to be to help fade that behavior.
That's awesome. I think a lot of moms watching this are going to be able to, apply some of this to their daily routine. I always like ending these interviews with I call them like fun thinking questions, and it kind of just shows like perspective from each mom. So If you could have a billboard made today where you could share one tip with moms everywhere, what would you have it say?
So this one is, I would say, more sleep related, but sleep is an important part to behavior as well. I would paint a billboard with the brightest color ever that says sleep is possible, because we live in this time period of social media, which has so many benefits, but also a time where we see hashtag tired as a mother, right? And we see, will not sleep tonight, and, tired mama, I need coffee. There's so many things that lead us to believe that children aren't supposed to sleep, that it's normal to have a 3-year-old who's still waking up 3 or 4 times a night, that we consistently just kind of think it's something we have to deal with, when in fact it is something that is so important for our little ones to learn the new skills that they need to be able to get the sleep that they need. And that's going to benefit behavior as well. But there's so much that leads us to believe that this is just something we all have to deal with and get through, when really, in fact, we have the power to teach our little ones in a way that fits our families individually the skills to be able to get that solid sleep that they need for their health, their development, their behavior, everything.
Okay, and then this next one is kind of similar, but what is a quote you live by or think of often when it comes to parenting?
So this one actually relates to what we're talking about specifically, and I wish I knew where I heard it from, but I don't. And the quote is, give your kiddos all of your attention some of the time. And that means, like what we were talking about before, fill up their attention, their need for attention, some of the time. But when you're there, give them all of your attention, because in this day of, social media and our phones and all of this stuff distracting us, it's so easy to go, oh yeah, oh, I like your drawing. Oh, yeah, I'll be right there. Right. And there's this distraction that goes on, and our kiddos are so aware of that. So when we give the attention, we give it all, but sometimes it's okay for our little ones to not have our attention and learn that that's normal as well.
So tell us where everyone can find you on social, and then what you kind of offer, like if you do consultations or that kind of thing. So share all your information there.
Yeah, I'd love for people to come and find me on Instagram. That's where I am most active. And you can find it at Samantha Day Sleep Consulting. And I'm same handle on Facebook as well. And then my website is samanthadayconsulting.com. And there's tons of information on there. But I would say I partner with families in a lot of different ways, one-on-one consulting and through videos. And that's probably the most popular option right now. I have a membership group where people pop in. They have a library of videos on both behavior and sleep. And it's divided from birth all the way to 6 years old. So they go in there, they find the age of their child, and they have a bunch of 3 to 5 minute videos that talk about all the transitions our kiddos go through. So what happens when they're sick, when they're teething, when there's nap transitions, when they start hitting, all these different things. And there's a video right there as a consistent place to turn when they need advice. So that is an option. And then I also have courses that people can take if their little ones aren't sleeping well and they are just ready to get on track. All of that is there as well.
Well, thank you so much. I can't wait to share this, not only with, YouTube and Facebook and everything, but with our Facebook group, because we got a lot of moms and they're asking questions about sleep and behaviors. All right, guys, so if you found this episode super interesting and you loved last week's as well and want to get more from Samantha, check out Samantha Day Sleep Consulting on Instagram. Also, she has a website, as she said. I'm also going to put all the links below so you can check her out. Definitely check her out there. And thank you so much, Samantha, for interviewing with us and sharing everything you have. Thanks everyone for tuning in, and I will see you next week.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Mom Talks with Krista. If you're not yet subscribed, go ahead and click on the subscribe button. It should be down here somewhere. We release new episodes every single Wednesday, and if you're not following us yet, be sure to follow us at Mommy Knows Best on Instagram. And remember, if you're watching this and doubting yourself, you are a great mom. So thanks so much for watching, and we will see you next week.